5 a.m., my body just started convulsing. I was aspirating vomit into my lungs and actually fell right out onto the hardwood floor, which awoke my sister's dog. And so of course I was rushed to the hospital. In the ambulance I crashed, and once I got to the hospital, I remember vividly being wheeled into the operating room, the nurses and the doctors cutting off all my clothes and hearing them saying, "We're losing him." And I died. Vital signs, absence, I had no heartbeat, I was dead for a number of minutes. And as I looked up, above me there was this big fluorescent light, and it was buzzing. And as I was checking out, the buzzing got louder and louder and louder and louder, until the point I'm thinking, how could I be hearing this? There's no way humanly possible to be listening to this sort of volume. And then everything went black. And when I woke up, I was standing on a beach. Most beautiful beach I'd ever seen, because it's not of this world. And I'm standing there with the surf and the sand and the winds and everything. And I'm looking, and ahead of me, I see a couple of footprints in the sand. And then I see just one set of footprints. And I know where I've seen this before, right? Many people in the room have heard of footprints in the sand, right? You know, God walking, looking, God, you were with me at all these good points, but when it was terrible, why is there only one foot? And God says, because I was carrying you. And just as I'm coming to that realization, from the top of my head, right through my body, and out through my feet, the words, I know. And I'm looking around, because this is, and I know it's God, but I can't see him. And he was with me. And when I say he was with me, he was inside my head, he was in my heart. I felt him around. It was almost like he was wrapping me in a deep embrace. And here I was, I killed myself, right? And I'm there with God, and I'm expecting judgment and anger, and all I felt was love. And because God's love. And so he showed me up in the sky, true to the thing, points in my life, all the bad stuff that I had done and the path that I was headed on. And it wasn't good. I knew it only ended up in one place. And I could talk to all of you all night about that, but I can't. But it seemed like I spent an eternity with him there, but it was only a few minutes. And he told me that he had some very important work for me to do, but I wasn't well enough to do it. But the time would come, and I would know. And so I begged and I pleaded to stay, and I wanted to see my mom, and he told me, your mom doesn't want to see you this way. So I went back, and as he's talking, all of a sudden his voice turns into this loud buzz, which I came back to the operating room, and I'm lying on the table. I was messed up really bad, of course, as you can imagine, and it took me some time to get better. It took me a long time. I had another health scare where I walked into the hospital with acute pancreatitis, and my kidney failed, and I almost died at that time as well. And then eventually I got the help I needed, and I ended up in Homewood in Guelph. And I spent the next 5 months there getting better. And of course that's when I got the official PTSD diagnosis. But the interesting thing about the diagnosis of bipolar, I found out later that the reason the antidepressant medication didn't work for me was because a lot of the meds I were taking don't help people with bipolar disorder. So, but in Homewood, I was seeing a psychiatrist every single day. So I had my meds adjusted and I got better. So I got myself pretty good, and I'm leaving Homewood, and I've got some serious decisions to make, like do I return to policing? And I didn't want to. Truth be told, I started exploring other options, and as Don would know, working in fraud, you deal with a lot of bank people that are former police officers that do fraud investigations for banks, so I was looking at that. And then all of a sudden, everywhere I looked was my badge number, 724. It was crazy. I'd go out, walk the dog, and I'd come in, and the time on the clock on the stove would be 724. I'd go jump on my motorcycle, and before I go, oh, I better top up the tank, it's a long ride, go to the gas station, put it back, 724. Everywhere looked at, I mean, radio stations, you know, like playing 570 news, news at 724, like I could talk for half an hour on that. But it became clear that he was letting me know it was time for me to go back and be a police officer so that I could help other officers that were struggling. And that's what I did. I ended up going back to work, and we have an absolute terrific chief and administration, whole workplace welcomed me back. And after I was there for a couple of years, I floated the idea of doing a video. It was a suicide awareness video for police officers, and with the blessings of the chief, that happened. And I'm proud to say that that video now is being shown all around the world. And and the people that have, actually, so this, one more 724 story, if you'll bear with me. So the chief wanted to show this video during our annual training day, when everyone in the organization comes in and gets trained in, you know, you got to requalify on your pistol, defensive tactics, all that education. He wanted everyone to see the video. And he's at the end of the video too, so I'm sure you want to get his message out there as well. But that morning, I knew it was going to be shown for the first time, and I was actually at the McDonald's at 401 and Homer Watson. And I'm sitting there having a black coffee and Egg McMuffin, reading the Toronto Sun newspaper. And you know, when people go into the McDonald's now, you can put your order right yourself, and it spits out a receipt and has your number right there. So when I did it, I got something ridiculous like 1371 or something like that. So okay, whatever. So I go have my my breakfast, and when I'm leaving the restaurant, the kid behind the counter looks at me with the order and goes, "Excuse me, sir, are you 724?" So I guess I'm going to be a cop till I retire now. It was incredible. Yeah, thank you. And so I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards, you know, police officers watched it, and they would come down the stairs, and I'm at the front desk, and they would say, "Hey, Swanee, like, holy smokes, I never knew." And then I get quite a few that say, "Hey, Pat, can I grab your cell phone number?" And they'd contact me, and I mean, this was every time. And it got to the point I had to really educate myself on compassion fatigue, right? because you want to be a helper to so many people, but if you're not looking, you know, you can empty that tank very quickly and you got nothing left to pour for anyone. So, but I did have one person, the first person that came up to me and said, "You know, Pat, you saved my life." And I was like, "Oh yeah, you sure, you know, whatever, you know, like that." And they said, "No, had it all planned out." And they proceeded to tell me their suicide plan. And everything they'd done, they got all their affairs in order and written things out, and then they called me. And in speaking to me, they said that they realized that they had hope. And so that was one of quite a few. The coolest thing for me now is all the people that I've helped with their struggles. You know, there's been a lot of them. And everyone has to do their journey in their own time, right? You know, I've seen a lot of my friends that struggle with, you know, addictions as well, drug and alcohol, as well as being a police officer and all that brought that. So that's very tough, right? Because you got to look after the addictions. But, you know, I've had so many come to me. And the really cool thing is some of the people that I've helped that got better that are now helping others, right? They're paying it forward.
That's right.
And they're just as passionate as I am about helping other people, because if you've been where I have been, and we've heard some stories, you know, I have said, you know, the way I was feeling in my head, I would sooner be in the pits of hell and having a demon pull the flesh off my bones for the terror and the anguish that was going in. And I turned it around. And there's no way, if you told me that, I would believe it. So my message is, if you or anyone you know is suffering, and we all know when something's wrong with someone, right? You know, there is help available, right? I put it off way too long, and I tell all my friends, all police officers, you know, don't be like me. Don't wait till it gets to that point, because it doesn't have to get to that point, right? And these people that put it up their arms, you know, like you look around, there's no judgment being cast. It's just support. And I know there's people in this room tonight that can't put up their arm. And my message to them is keep going. You're doing a good job, and you'll get there one day. Thank you very much, everyone.